So I put out enough cues for everybody along the way that said that you should have the knowledge and the experience and the readiness for this class. I put a couple of things out. There are lots of little markers, but if you have been through your classes and sat through the classes dutifully, ate your lunch on Saturday when you were supposed to, maybe you went over to the creamery, I don't know what you did at that time, and then you left, you were here a couple of days, and then you were, beyond that, you didn't really have that much to say or do. Well, those classes were an opportunity for you to develop a problem. And if you took methodology classes, those were things that were supposed to help you know how to do the research related to this. And the whole idea is to do something that is worthy. In other words, why you do this is because you select a problem that's worthy enough to complete. So, and that you should be developing in classes. And some of you are old enough that you took the scholarly inquiry class, which is a former class we used to run here for doctoral students to get them tuned up for life in the wfed program. And small boot camp activity, seemed to work though. And I warned people in there, I said that the critical activity in a doctoral program is not the courses all the way along. You learn how to take your courses. You got your A's and B's. You did all the things after you accumulated the right number of credits. Zingo, they gave you a degree. Wow, you were anointed with that. You had all the credits together. Well, guess what? In the PhD program, I told everybody at that time that the PhD is not awarded on the basis of the credits that you accumulate. And whether you got to get good grades, but whether you get A's and B's or not, nobody will really know or care practically. As a matter of fact, I think I've only had to yank my transcript out of the bowels of, it's actually a handwritten thing. It was at the University of Minnesota, maybe scroll work, I don't know. But, I've only had to show that once or twice with the official seal on it. That's about it. Nobody ever said, what class did you take? They want to know what you can do. And so the doctoral degree, I think, eventually ends up with a dissertation that helps to show what you can do in an area of interest, and then you can use that to display. So you need to be ready for this class. And I have a little manifesto out there. This is the capstone on whatever degree program you're in, this course. And if you dig in and take a look at the course syllabus, you'll see there's a section that points you to these guidelines and policies for courses managed by me. That was my dog there. A year ago, he dropped dead on this day. It was a cold day like this, and he came in and he hit his head on the wall and died instantly. So he gets commemorated on here to remind you about the guidelines for this course. But anyway, in that tells you all the things I think about grading and the technology and things you use, and I use these in all the courses I have. So if you haven't read that, you ought to take a look at it. There's a lot to read in here. But the mission of this course really is to help you prepare a proposal that's styled, structured, composed rhetorically in a manner that's going to persuade your committee that you can do the job. Okay? That's the fundamental thing. The primary audience for the work that you'll be writing in here will be me first, but you need to think about your committee. So when you think about your committee, those are the primary people. Some of the people on your committee are going to be sophisticated about what you do and know. Others are going to be interested. Some of them won't have a clue. And so but they're all they're not they're not reading the nightly newspaper. These are people who are sophisticated and can learn. So that's I think that's the general audience that you're pushing toward here. So that's the mission. Okay? And everything that we do in here is meant to lead to that outcome. And again, 3 questions in here. What are you going to do? Why are you going to do it? Why is it worthy? And then how? You answer those questions sufficiently, you'll make it through this class, and I think you'll find that your committee will be pleased with you too. You probably have all been to the website. There's a bunch of stuff in there. I mean, a bunch. So like every class I teach, I have a bunch of stuff, and you need to sort through the bunch of stuff. But I usually tell you in detail what you should be doing. And if I'm not telling you in enough detail, let me know and I'll lay it out. I like to lay it out so that you know what's going to happen to you. So I apologize if it's long. If I have more time, it'd be shorter. In the sidebar, in the syllabus pages, there are the major items that you can get to in the course. So basically, there's a section that talks about the focus of the course, the textbook and other resources that we have, and it's more than just the textbook. Something about our meetings, and I'll talk about each one of these things because it's kind of a unique class in that way. Some schedules, not only for the meetings, but also for due dates. There's 7 major tasks in this course. You have 7 products. The last one you produce is the biggie. It's the Rose Bowl of course products. It's your thesis proposal. And along the way, so we have those schedules in there. And I have everything in the calendar. And I'll show you that in a few seconds. And then also, there are activities. There are 7 activities in this course that you progress through, all the way from kind of verifying that I know that you're here and that you know that you're here doing the right thing. Secondly, part of portraying your proposal to your committee is to prepare your proposal in a way that's just like, is formatted like your dissertation or thesis is supposed to be formatted. There's no waiting, I'll get it a little later. Maybe I can make Microsoft Word. I'll learn after the course. In this course, I won't even look at a product that you have unless it's in the right format. That's how. And believe me, this sounds like a trivial thing, he's just being a character on this, but there's creep on this along the way, I find. People begin to say, well, I don't know how to put the page numbers in, or I didn't get the table of contents. And there's a template that Penn State provides, a Penn State thesis template. I couldn't get it to work. I've never learned how to use styles in a Microsoft Word document to make sure I get a consistent document. Well, you know, this gets kind of dicey after a while. So pay attention. It's all cumulative, okay? I have some tasks and deadlines in here. Joe likes me to give technical stuff because he's in this company there, right? He likes the tech side of this class, right? When you submit assignments, we submit them to Box, which is an enterprise file sharing system. When you submit those, you have an email address that's unique for every assignment. When you submit that assignment, you will get a receipt. I used to have problems with people. They'd submit something and then they'd send a note right away. Say, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? I'd say, yeah, I got it. You sure you got it? Can you open it? Can you open it? Forget about it. Okay, so, yeah. So there's some of that set up in there. And some of this stuff is going to take a little while to get used to because we do use technology a lot. We don't want to be fumbling around with permissions and saying, yes, we got it, and notifying you. There's a lot to be done, so we're going to rely on that. And grades and grading. The final proposal is worth over half of the course grade. The components of the proposal, there are about 6 things that you do, are worth the rest of that. And those are easy to get done. I mean, I'm asking that you get those in on time and well formatted. I'm asking that the final proposal be really good. Now, along the way, when you turn in these intermediate course products, we will talk about those things. I will give you feedback on how you can make them better. I expect you to take that feedback and make those things better, and not to forget the things that, and ignore the things that I gave you in week 3, and then not do the things. Somehow it kind of works me up, you know, even at night when I have the tutorials. So also we have a course assistant. Talk about that right here. Been working with me for 1 semester, right? Yes. He came back. It's okay. This works. It works. Okay. So, and I'm going to go through. I'm going to give you the 30,000-foot look of the syllabus. You need to read the syllabus. You need to look at the details. There are a lot of things in there. You may not remember them now, but you ought to look at those things because they could cue you for specific things you need to look for a little later. So, if you took with me the Scholarly Inquiry course, we're still using in this course the same book that we used in Scholarly Inquiry, which is this Cresswell book. I like the Cresswell book. There are lots of books about research. They tell you about research. They give you information about how to do things. They give you the philosophy behind research. It's really cool, but this book tells you how to write a proposal and how to write a report. And Cresswell was on campus here, last semester or something? Did you meet with him? We had some people meet with him from our program, Jennifer Nicholas, and he's the man now. He does all the books out in mixed methods and qualitative work and quantitative work. And this piece here, his 4th edition, is probably buying his Fort Lauderdale home right now. I think he retired. So that's the book. We don't sit down and test you about the book. There are portions of the book that are appropriate for you. So when you write about the problem that you're trying to solve, when you give the purpose of the study, which is what you're going to do to solve the problem, when you write about research questions, which are the questions, the data that you will obtain are meant to answer specifically. When you write about the methods that you'll use to answer those questions in the review, the book has a lot of information about how to structure those. Now, some of you in here, everybody has a little bit different flavor to the way they're approaching this. Some people are quantitative people, some people are qualitative, and some people are approaching mixed methods kind of thing. So the way you approach your proposal and the way you do things is a little different for each one. And so Cresswell has some pretty good advice on some of those things. The APA manual, I'm not even going to take a hand count here. Everybody in this room ought to own an APA manual. I should see you walking around campus like it's Oral Roberts University, like it's a Bible. I think you should be stopping people down by the corner and asking them if they've seen the APA manual lately. Is there anything you can tell them about the APA manual they'd like to hear? You got one. All right, that's good. I like it. Mine's a spiral bound one, so I can put it on the desk and beat it up. It's so beat up, it's all falling apart right now. But anyhow, now we use the APA. If you've written papers and you've written papers for publication in our field, and you've written papers in our program, you should have been using the APA manual. There's a lot of detail in it. The significant problem in this class is that you not only have to have the APA manual, but you need to make sure that you have a copy of the thesis guide. Now, the thesis guide is what the graduate school says about how your thesis, your dissertation, should be structured. And they give you specific information. And the APA manual is primarily, now think about what the mission is of the APA manual. It's primarily set up so that you can prepare a manuscript to submit to a journal. So there's some things in the APA manual that are specific. So for instance, they have you double space everything. And they have you set things up in tables and things so that they can easily be read. It's meant to help the publisher compose the copy that will go in the journal from your article. It's not meant for distribution. On the other hand, back when I was a doctoral student, somebody typed my dissertation. It had 30 pages of mathematics on it, and she typed it in 2 nights. That was amazing. There were no errors. Crazy kind of thing. But now people don't do that. Everybody's composing their own work. They're not only writing, but they're also formatting, composing, making it look good. So in that case, the thesis guide helps you to say what looking good is in our thing. So there are some kind of inconsistencies between the APA manual and the thesis guide, and those are things we'll work out. We can talk about those things, and what will happen is you have to make sure you do things consistently. We'll get things done. So we have to be familiar with both, and we have to meld those together. When we run into problems with how they're handled, we can talk about how that's done. Also, Wung-Bei and I don't use regular email. Well, we do, only like with our kids and family. But for this class, we use Piazza. One of the reasons Piazza is a Q&A threaded discussion group. Many of you have used this in classes with me before. What we try to do is we try to embargo all of our communication about this course inside Piazza. This helps us keep track of everything that's being done in one spot, And we will check that before we will even check our mail. If you ever sent anything to dlp@psu.edu, you know that guy sends you back a thing that says, I might look at my mail once a week. I look at it on Fridays. So it might be too late for you. I will pay attention to Piazza because it's part of my primary teaching mission. So think of that. And also, we talk about Piazza here. Use that for communication now. In a lot of classes, it ends up being somebody whispers a question to me and then I stand up and talk about it in Piazza. Well, don't forget, Piazza is meant to be an interactive device. If you have questions, put a question out there. Don't send Wumbe and I questions about things that you're concerned about. Put them in, unless they're private things like in your grade, you broke your big toe or something like that. You had your knee replaced or something like that in the middle of the semester. Things like that are personal, I'd say. That's one thing. But when you have other questions, put them in the group. The questions you have, other people have. Answer the questions if you can. Be so bold as to give advice. It's kind of like medical school. See one, do one, teach one. If you gives you a chance to practice helping other people out, it's a good way to learn, good way to be able to develop your consulting skills. So don't be bashful to do that. And so I think that, a lot of people miss that opportunity in here, and they miss, kind of saying out loud. By the way, none of the, I haven't really seen I have seen dumb questions. That's right. No, just I'm not looking away in particular. But yeah, no. But most of the time, when people have questions, you may say, "Well, that's kind of naive. Everybody knows the answer to that." I'll bet they don't. I really bet they don't. And you shouldn't be worried if there are inconsistencies and things you don't understand about things I'm asserting that you should do. You should bring them up. I'll do my best to clarify this. I'm not afraid to hear that you say that. Okay, so you can say it out loud. Okay, so that's Piazza. Everybody in this room ought to have access into Piazza. I think there's one person who hasn't signed up yet, but there's stuff in there. I dump everything in there. All the PowerPoint tonight that we've worked so hard in putting on 5 different computers to show you is actually posted in there. And so when we have PowerPoint presentation material, it's there. I have videos I've made that are there. I will sometimes make audio or video kinds of things that are in there. In some cases, for individual comments on things, I will provide voice thread. Has anybody in here ever used VoiceThread? Yeah, VoiceThread's a kind of a cool product that Penn State has. It's an enterprise product in which you can kind of put, I'm going to call it media. Could be video, could be audio, could be PowerPoint, could be PDF in the center of something, and you can talk about that. And the talking can occur in video, audio, text. You can even call on the phone and comment on it. So sometimes I may use that because we won't have the time to kind of write elaborate sorts of things, so I'll give you oral feedback in that way. But anyhow, that Piazza handles all that stuff, and I will post that stuff, and the things are general. You'll see that we keep those in a little compendium, and just about everything that's important ends up in there. You can send private notes to Wumbe and I. It's not set up. It's unfortunate. It's not set up so that you can use student-to-student private notes. For some reason, Piazza doesn't allow that. But you can send a private note to us, or you can send a public note. When you send a public note, it means everybody in the class sees it. Every once in a while, we've had somebody vet their frustration, and then they find out that they had problems. Yes?
Just curious, with all the different technology, software solutions to teaching courses, Canvas, Angel, VoiceThread, when is the university going to have a consistent product that they use?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I don't like any of their products. So let's be clear out there. That's why I don't use Canvas or Angel. I'm forced to use Canvas. I teach a World Campus course. I don't like it. I don't like the LMS. I have my own stuff. But the question is, when will they do something that's consistent? Well, I think what they're trying to do is do that with Canvas. Once they knew they were 5 or 6 years before before Angel was killed, it took about 5 or 6 years for them to make that kind of transition. They finally selected Canvas. And Canvas has some opportunities to integrate all these things. and it's not really working yet. So for instance, the university has a product that they call UCU. If you've ever used this, I've used it, I still don't get it. I mean, students can't use it. I mean, there's a lot of problems with it. It's difficult. So there are a lot of things, but you know, I think it's going to take a while. Okay, but in here, what I try to, I'm not wedded to university products. I like VoiceThread a little bit. Every once in a while, it dies. But as far as video, audio, I put all of my audio. I put my audio out on SoundCloud. I put my video out on Google, and I serve it right from there. And all of the web material for this course is not hosted by the university. It's hosted by Bluehost.
The reason I ask is there's a learning curve to even understanding
exactly,
how to use the methods of class.
I know it is. Yeah. Well, life is short. That's the way it works. Okay, keep it all in Piazza. You know, it's the message here. Keep it calm. Finish your dissertation. We also use Box in here. This is an example of where we do a submission in Box. You'll see when there are assignments to submit for various tasks, all you need to do is click on a URL and it will automatically fix up and structure an email note for you. The email addresses that you send these things to are written, you know, in the SETI project where they're trying to communicate with extraterrestrials, I think, because none of this is easily readable, right? It's not something you'll remember. So you can point to and click on these things and it'll structure the email notes. And to these email notes, you attach your submissions, okay? And just a note, you mentioned this a couple of times, when you submit these things, if you write to us and say, hi, how are you? I put something in here. We can't see it. It gets stripped out. So all we get are the attachments. And when you send this, if you're, I'm going to mention this because we're running into this more and more. People are using computers that belong to their employers. And, you know, we have people who work for school districts. We have people who work for Penn State. And a lot of times they're locked down really hard. And it's getting harder because there's a lot more risk out there. So sometimes I find every once in a while when somebody goes to click on something, it will not open their favorite email machine. If you run into that, talk to your administrator to make sure that they open that up, because otherwise it'll be kind of hard for you. I don't think we'll run into that too much. When we ran into this in the data analysis class last year, we started seeing lots of people who were having trouble using their own computers, well, not their own, but their employers' computers for their schoolwork. So if somebody else administers your computer and you have trouble with this, I think turn to them first. You might get some help on this. And so we have 6 assignments that get submitted. Well, actually 5 assignments that get submitted this way. Also, when you have the granddaddy of your proposal in the end, we put that up and turn it in. Turn it in is another product. All you do is upload your material to it. Turn it in allows us to examine the originality of your work and also for you to verify that too. So I think that I honestly haven't seen, that might be true, I have not seen an instance since I've been using Turnitin where someone has plagiarized directly things. We had one time when somebody's husband was an instructor in engineering and they thought they would test out their paper and they submitted it to the instructor's account in engineering, and that put it entirely into the database for Turnitin. And then when they submitted it to me, it was 100% plagiarized. I knew the answer to that, but I let the student develop a small ulcer about that one way. It took a little while to convince. So and also, there are places in here where you'll be able to put in your full and final proposal. But I've also set something up. It's called a test stand. If you're writing something, you want to check and see, how it grades. You can put in the test scan. It's not put into a big database. You can try it out. It's not unusual to see anywhere from 50 to 20 to 30% lack of originality in a manuscript that you upload. And the reason for that are 2 things: is that Turnitin does not understand how APA does direct block quotes. So if it sees things in inverted commas, in double apostrophes, it says that's a quotation. But if it's not, it says that's text. And so it sees text and says, I found that someplace. So it identifies that. Also, there are times when I have it set up so that it will not pick out more than, if you have more than 10 words that are from some other document, it'll tell me. But sometimes it doesn't do that either. So sometimes it'll pick up things. Don't worry, you look at it, we look at it. It's not something we just go by the numbers on. As I say, I understand all those things. So just make sure, if you want to check your work along the way, just try the test game and turn it in. When it gets near the end of the term, I mean, look at us, we're all smiling now. At the end of the term, you're all going to look like mad rabbits, okay? And I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff. And nobody, Wumbe, he's going to be a busy boy, right? It's going to be the end of the term for him. And nobody's going to be able to help you and turn it in and get it fixed up. Make sure you log in now. Make sure you have an account, okay? Word to the wise, only to be said this once. In this, it's funny, all the stuff that you do in graduate school, you're reading things, you're memorizing things, you're calculating things, but performance in graduate school all boils down to writing. Okay? Every bit of stuff that's important that you do ends up in writing. And writing is central to your performance in this class. It's critical for you to complete the dissertation properly. Now, I have a document out there that talks about some of the writing, and also we have some advice from faculty on that. But if you don't have a lot of experience with writing, the only thing I want to tell you is that we're not talking about creative writing. You don't have to be, an author of a novel to do well. You have to be a good technical writer. And there are lots of good things you can learn with that. And, we'll talk about some of the writing issues tonight in the second half of this class. But it's really important. So everything that you do the writing is important. And I'm going to give you one major procrastination that I hear all the time in this course. That's it. How's the writing going? Really well. Tell me about it. I've been organizing it. I've been reading the stuff. And I can see somehow the neurons in my brain have structured. I can see an outline in topic sentences. And I'm in really good shape. I'd say, have you written it? No, it's easy. That's the easy part. All I can say is if you have, I give you a couple examples in this. Tell somebody how to write to somebody about how to tie their shoes, how to tie a bow tie, how to, how to solve a quadratic equation. Write it out. Clearly, it's difficult to do. That's what kind of like technical writing. So the advice on this is to take the idea that you have to write seriously, constantly improve your writing, think about things that you write. We're going to talk about some common problems in the second half of this course. And also, it's important. And when we get together, when you see my beady little eyes across the table or on Zoom back and forth, you know immediately I'm thinking about your writing. And now in this class, I am not the screen, because of the way this course is structured, about whether what, how, or why is really good. I'll have my own opinions. You might hear me every once in a while. I have an opinion that I voice on things like that, but it doesn't count. It really counts is what you're doing with your advisor and committee. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing on the writing, and we'll talk about some other things, but you really need to make sure that you have all that done. So when you're writing, the other part of this, it has to be in collaboration with the person who really is going to eventually be the person in charge, the person who is the chair of your committee. That will be the person who will decide whether you can take your comprehensive exam. Who's your advisor, Melissa? Okay, just checking. Okay, so I think this is really important. This is if you're not sweating this every week, you're missing the point. If you just think you know what you're doing and think you have it down on a yellow pad in outline form, it won't work. Okay, so here's what we do in the course. There are 7 activities. The first activity is I'm going to call it a questionnaire. And remember I told you that you need to know and be able to do things in this class. There are lots of things you need to be able to know and do, and they're really kind of tailored to the things that you're going to be doing in your dissertation. In the first task of this, by next Sunday, I want to see detail about your preparation for this. And also a précis, which is a brief description of the why, what, and how. I will put my beady little eyes on that, and I will give you my assessment, and I will indicate to you whether I think you're really ready to go in this class. If I don't think you are, you can still stay in class. We like your tuition. We know you probably paid it already and all that. But your advisor is going to get that too, and you need to make sure that everything is clean and clear, that you're ready to take this. And this is one way for us to assess this. And I'm going to get a better idea about your preparation and what you say you know when you get done with this. And this will help me out when I'm meeting with you on a one-on-one basis. The second activity is where you need to format just a shell of your dissertation. It has the table of contents, the cover page, the blah, 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 all the rest, even down to the last page is a Vita. You might as well write it down. It's a one-page Vita. And it's not really, has no content in it. It just is set up so that we can see that you have the heading, subheading structure, the margins correct, the font's correct, all the other kind of stuff. And all of that is in the thesis guide. And you'll see in a document that I have, I also point you to the Penn State thesis template. Now, I recommend the template. If you know how to use a template in styles, you're going to be rewarded. If you don't know how to do that, I'd say be careful, because you're going to spend a lot of time making the template work. So all the things you've learned about preparing documents all the way along in Microsoft Word should pay off now if you know how to do that. But if you don't know how to do that, I'd say you're going to have to struggle to manually prepare your dissertation shell. And that includes a table of contents updated every time and all the other kinds of things. So this is the kind of ladies' choice dance that you can make right here about how you're going to handle this. So that's the second task. The major research proposal components there are 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. The first is that you write about the problem that you'll study. The second thing about the purpose of your study and how it will help to solve that problem. The third thing that you do is prepare a review of literature, related literature. Now, I'm just going to make 1 or 2 comments about this, and I have more to say about this in the syllabus. The review of literature that you do for your dissertation isn't the grand tour of Europe, okay? Where you see everything and take a picture of everything that's there. And this kind of gets to be perverse after a while. When I first arrived at Penn State, all the people who said this are retired now, so I can tell you the story. But when I first arrived here, one of the first dissertation committees I was on, a student came in and had a review of literature. It seemed to be okay. And the faculty sent the student back. They said, "You got to do more." And I said, "Well, what's the message for the student?" They said, "It's not enough. It's not thick enough." And they advised the student that they had a section on evaluation. Now, they write something about this. The idea was that it didn't look like a dissertation to them. Well, I like dissertations that look like good documents. And when I say review of related literature, and this may be hard for you to swallow, but you need to find literature that's related to the problem that you're working on. What have other people done? What are the kind of knowledges that are kind of related to your problem to help us understand that? How does it fit together? There's plenty to do there. Okay, not just a matter of, taking, as I say, I call it the grand tour of everything. It's not going to be successful. So when I talk about a review of literature, I'm not talking about a separate book. I'm talking about a purpose-driven section of your dissertation proposal that tells us what we need to know to help kind of understand the problem that you've chosen and how you've chosen to do it. Then the last thing you do is talk about the methods. Methods are the how. Who are you going to study? How are you going to find those people? What will you do with them? What will you ask them? When you get data back, what will you know about the reliability and validity of the data? What will you do to analyze data? So when you analyze data, that's talking about how you will answer the research questions that you specified with the data that you have. And so that's task 6 in here. So you have the problem, purpose and research questions, review of related literature, the method, sine die. It's done at that point, okay? And then there's some time in there where you can jaw with me about this, but the idea of task number 7 is to pull it all together. The idea is coherence from the front to the back, okay? Tying up all the loose ends, all those kinds of things so that you have a good, consistent, clear document. Okay? And so that there are no quizzes in there. There's enough challenge in what I have here to do that. Okay, so in task 1, you complete this survey. If you don't, you should start this. This is not, although Melissa, you completed it very quickly. Were you anticipating?
Something that said, can I edit it?
I think you should.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
No, I noticed when I made a mistake.
No, yeah. But by the way, this is a good point. Thank you for saying that, because if, for instance, she's going to resubmit this document, she missed a couple of things. That's no problem. I will take the most recent submission that you make, as long as it's prior to the deadline, as the real one. We throw out all the others. So if for instance, in task 2, you submit it early and you realize you screwed it up in some way, you can resubmit it at that point. It's not a problem, right up until the deadline. Okay, so we'll recognize that in the so that's number 1. The other parts here: thesis shell, problem, purpose of the study, research questions, review of related research, and method. Now, these may sound like separate tasks, but along the way, I expect you to improve. So if we talk about something about that you've done with the problem, and we suggest that you do things with that, I'd like to see that get done. Okay, and so we may have, especially when we submit that. When you submit that, I will give you track changes on those things, and I expect you to address the track changes to say, I've resolved it this way, or I refuse to do it. I don't believe what you have to say, and I think that, here's my reasoning. All right, that's good too. Yeah.
If you're doing a repeated measure of an existing research study, is that plagiarism?
You mean a replication of a study? Replications of studies are not plagiarism. Plagiarism has to do with taking the work of others and presenting it as your own. It's primarily, I would say, more focused on writing than that. If you're going to do a replication study, nobody does them. There's a big to-do, as a matter of fact, right now, about the lack of replication studies. And some of you may have seen this. I posted a few things on our discussion boards. But one of the things that's going on is that people are going back and actually replicating some of the crucial studies in psychology and finding out that the findings on which we're basing all of this are reversed and don't make sense. And that's because there's kind of a publication bias in journals. When somebody finds something that gets published, if somebody presents a manuscript where they didn't find anything, they'd say, well, that's not interesting, and it goes away. So a lot of times there's a publication bias, and there's this kind of accumulation, there's very little replication. And so there's been a big push now in a lot of fields to say it's a good idea to take studies that have been done previously, and I'm going to say generalize them. People, places, and time, other kinds of things. So that's a certainly worthy idea. I think you need to put it in that context straightforwardly. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's when you take the entire chapter 2 from a 1947 dissertation that was done at Northwestern. So 20 years ago, I was asked to chair a committee. It was one of the worst assignments I ever had in my life. And so it's kind of like you had to shoot somebody's dog. But the graduate school, somebody, I'm not even going to mention the field, wasn't college or education, but it was in one of the sciences, was accused of plagiarism. And the person had lifted an entire review of literature from a 1950 dissertation, and some wag of a faculty member in his department figured this out after a year. He had already graduated, and they found this out, and they rescinded his degree.
I remember reading that.
Did
Was
you?
that like within the past 10 years? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe.
I feel like I remember reading about it.
There was one that was publicized. This one wasn't. There was one.
There was one that was
But it can happen. So that's not, we can talk about this. This is not, replicating something is not an issue. Plagiarizing it is. So replication is coming back as a good idea. Just one, you order a pizza? It's okay. It's okay. No, don't worry.
You dropped your phone, and you dropped your phone.
Oh, yeah, thanks for watching out for the old guy.
You're just learning an eye.
Thank you. It's always good to have a mom. Okay, but that's not a bad idea. The thing is that the other thing is that people are coming up and saying is this just came up now. There's a new woman from the Netherlands has developed a program that checks the results of statistical analyses in automatically. I mean, it goes in and just kind of, now that we have all this capability to read text on computers, she actually read thousands of articles and was able to figure out the error rates that people are making in reporting the statistics that they have. It's kind of a big deal. And people got really angry with her. They said, well, you're destroying our careers. It's interesting. Anyhow, yeah, there's a reason to do things again.
Well, a lot of the components would already be identified.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the trick is you're not going to go out. I mean, you're not going to go out and do the same study they did because you don't have access to the same populations of things. But as I say, generalize the question about generalizability is really important. When I talk about generalizability, we're talking about what's called the external validity of conclusions of studies. So 15 years ago, there may have been a study that was completed and it arrived at a particular set of conclusions with a particular set of recommendations. So the question with external validity is, can we believe that those things are, there's a prescription made from that study that you should do something differently. So the question is can we believe that those results and those findings and those recommendations are generalizable across people, places, and time? And that's certainly a worthy kind of a thing to do. So anyway, we'll talk about that. I know you have an interest in this. We will. It sounds like an interesting idea. Okay, so this is the general flow that we have. This is all cumulative. You should be, when we review your work and we talk about your work, you should endeavor to go back and fix that up. If you have a problem with citations and things, we'll find out about those and you need to fix things up. It gets a little frustrating on both ends for me to come back and say, gee, I asked you about those citations. You have these? And you said, well, no, I didn't have time. I was too busy. What would you be too busy? What would you be too busy to do rather than pay attention to your proposal in this course? I mean, I don't get it.
The APA manual?
What's that?
The APA manual?
Yeah, that's another. Yeah, studying that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, good, Brian. I got that. That's the right response. Okay, now I have. When we go to, I want your absolute best work to review, not the half-assed work, not the partial work, not the thing that you might finish next week, okay? I want, every time I see it, I want to see a paper that is qualified. It's going to be formatted properly. It's going to have everything ready. If you have made the mistake of breaking somehow the mold that you're using for formatting your dissertation, you're going to fix it up before it goes in, because we're not going to look at that in any way. If you have you've not addressed the question, that's one thing. Now, I want to say at this point, I expect your absolute best work. Now, not everybody in here is a native English speaker, and also, I found over the years that native English speakers and writers are not always the best with native English speaking and writing. Okay, so things happen, right? I understand this, and this is a big document. And getting the document ready and all, that's one thing. So if you have trouble with minor problems with grammar, spelling. I mean, we have spell checkers. Check it for spelling. If you have problems with grammar, you have dropped words. I mean, it's very typical of the person when they write something, you've been writing it over and over and over again. When you read something, you don't read things word by word. Eventually, you apprehend things. So you might have a whole phrase. You say, yeah, that's good. And you don't even know that you edited that a little while earlier and you dropped a word out. And you don't get it. I understand things like that. We're obviously, the final piece that you want to put together is going to be important that you have fixed up that way. Okay? But along the way, I mean, we're going to be able to handle that. But we really need things to not deviate off the path of getting the whole dissertation formatted properly. So that's one of the things. Then Wumbe, see, he gets all the hard work in this. He goes through those things because I'm too delicate. If I see that stuff, I get all nervous, and he doesn't want that. So he gets a chance to go through that, and then keep me calm, so I don't see it. So he'll send things back to you that need to be fixed up. It's important. It's important, and there's a lot of stuff in there. Read about it, and basically it says be ready. Now, in the document that I wrote about writing, one of the things I say, people say, well, I can't afford an editor, and I actually, in the 38 years I've been here, I've only met one person who's still working at the university who has been an effective editor of our students' dissertations. The others have, I feel bad for people because they spend a lot of money on bad editing with their problems and things. You don't have to have another person like that. Now, some people say, well, I'll have my spouse read it. I don't know. I save the divorce for next semester. I mean, they don't like what I wrote. It doesn't work. Well, it's hard to do. Another thing to do, and I think this is really effective, is to read your work out loud. It's really effective. Have somebody read it to you. It could be a kid. All you have to do is be able to read the words. But when you hear those things, you all of a sudden will begin to say, wow, big gap. Or there's a word I missed. Or what happened here? You don't even understand what you said. And it really becomes a lot clearer. Or the person who's reading it says, I think there's a word dropped here. So I think that reading things out loud is really important. And I'd say it's better that somebody read things to you. But if you want to read the things out loud to yourself and stand in a room and abuse yourself that way by hearing all the things that you've done, I think it's okay too. But I'd say the final editing, if you have a trusted editor to do that you're going to pay, make sure that they're good. But it's ultimately up to you to get all this right. Schedules, okay. There's a meetings and events schedule in here, and also the basic idea on this is that there are places for one-on-one tutorials in here. One-on-one tutorials occur on most Mondays between 3 and 9 p.m. in half-hour intervals. You might say, what can we get done in a half hour? By the time the half hour is done, we're trying to run out the door. We usually accomplish a lot because I expect meetings to be organized and have a definite outcome in mind. And we've been pretty successful with getting that done, and everybody's been happy with that. And so there's a meetings and events calendars inside this. Also, there's a set of due dates that are available in there, and it tells you when things are due. Now, the due dates, there are 7 due dates in here for assignments, but the tutorials are a little bit different. Let me go back here once. All right. Well, the tutorials are a little bit different in the sense that they need to be scheduled a little bit ahead of time. You need to submit materials, and we'll talk about that schedule. So there is a Google spreadsheet that's available, and if you go through the tasks and deadlines link in the course syllabus, it'll bring this up. It tells you what's due, when. It links back to the pages in which the specifications for the products are laid out. It gives you the email addresses to which you make your submission. It tells you how much it's worth in the course grade. And so that's all available. Did you have a tie on? We always wear ties here for this course. Wumbe's your gateway to heaven here. He's going to see the stuff. He's going to make sure that before I see things that they conform to standards, and also that everything's ready and on time. He's kind of the parking lot manager here. As we get into things, if you've taken classes with me from before, I have a personal online transcript. So as you complete things, you'll know what the grade is. You'll be able to get those as an Adobe PDF file. When the first assignment is done, they will send you a URL, which leads you to your own personal online transcript for the course. Okay. And you know, the assignments are weighted differentially. The most important one is the final document. It's a little over half of the course grade, and that's weighted, and then the grade setup is in this way. So we have, you know, if you forget to do one of the assignments, it's only worth 5 or 6 or 7% of the grade. That's one thing. If you forget to do the proposal, it's a big part, so it's weighted that way. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're having this meeting. We'll have a meeting at the end. The meeting at the end is kind of a debrief, show what people have done, and it'll be in this room also, or on Zoom. And we have one-on-one tutorials. Now, we can do the one-on-one tutorials in my office, fine, or we can do them virtually on Zoom. And when you request a tutorial, you will specify which one you want. Now, we tested out last semester a new way of handling the scheduling on this, and I'll roll that out. But basically, you can schedule these tutorials Monday prior to a Monday tutorial. There's no way you can sit down. We don't take same time, same place kinds of things. You only schedule a tutorial when you're ready to talk about your writing. And so you can schedule those things. There are, you know, what are there? There are 12 half-hour intervals in there. Most of you will be able to be accommodated with that. If some of you, you know, sometimes people schedule something for 7 o'clock. There's nobody after. We can drift into the next half hour. That's not a problem with those kinds of things. But we can do this through Zoom, and Zoom works better than it did tonight on this computer right here. As a matter of fact, it was working well on the remote computers. I don't know what's going on here. But anyhow, Zoom's fine. You know, we can talk, we can share. In order to use Zoom, you need to have audio, video capability, and you know, we can share screens and things like that. No problem. We come in live in the Keller too. No problem. Okay. And the tutorials are very unique. I mean, I like talking to you, but they're only set up to discuss your writing. They're not set up to focus on your thoughts about your writing. Okay? And if you want clarification of what's due, post something in Piazza. And we're not using that time to help clarify, give you a tutorial about Creswell. You either learn it, ask about it in the in Piazza. So those things are there. So the focus is on writing that you and I can review together. We talk about what you've done, not what you hope to do. Now in Piazza is a little bit different. This is an open environment where you can talk about the thought. We can talk about your proposal. You can clarify requirements. Talk about Creswell. This is a place where we can, you know, if you need additional learning and all that, we can do that on there. It's meant to set up for peer information and consultation, information from me. And we pay attention to this every day. Okay, so that's it for this part. But what I'm going to do, I've got to take some medicine. I didn't appear drugged up, but I am. I had my knee replaced, so I still have to be driven around places. So I'm going to go out. Pat has been in this class before. She was a GA before. She may have some peculiar and particular insights about the class. I wanted you to be able to talk with her privately about that. So let's just take, it is what time now? 10 after 7? Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. 7:30, let's rejoin in here. We're going to talk about writing at that time. So you have a chance to talk with Pat, and I take a little bit of a rest break, and I'm going to go in and take some meds.